I'm an artist here at Zieler Art Supplies, and this is the second of this three-part of acrylic classes where I'm guiding you on how to get started with acrylic painting. So in today's class we're going to be going through some brush techniques and some colour mixing and also some painting on fabric. So showing you all the exciting different ways and different styles in which you can use acrylic paints. So I'm using the Zieler bundle pack, which comes with acrylic paper, the acrylic brushes, and also this 10-pack of acrylic paints. So there's plenty to get started with. And then a couple of other household things I'm using during today's class is just some some masking tape, and also I have some old clothing. So I'm going to be showing you painting on fabric. So I've got an old pair of shorts here which I've decorated the pockets. Acrylic paints are really versatile, so they're really good for painting on lots of different surfaces. And also I've got a t-shirt up here. So we're going to go through some couple of techniques to begin with, just to get you used to using your brushes and showing you how to colour mix a little bit. So let's get started. Starting off on a fresh sheet of paper, I'm just squeezing out a little bit of each colour from my Zieler paint tubes. Then I'm just going to do a little test swatch on this sheet. This can be really handy so that you can see what the colours turn out like once they're on paper and once they dry. Then I'm just going to do some basic blending. So using each colour and slowly adding a little bit of white to try and get a nice fade. Once you can learn how to blend your paints, you'll find that your paintings will really improve. Blending is quite key in most forms of painting. So using the paintbrush and really rubbing the paint into the page to help let the colours blend in a nice gradual fade. So now I'm just doing some basic colour mixing. So mixing yellow with red to create orange, blue and green to create turquoise, adding more white to that to get a paler colour. Then adding some yellow into the green to create more of a lime green. Then I'm blending the dark blue with black to get a nice deep fade. So you want to experiment and practice and see which colours you can make by mixing paints together. So starting off here, I'm using the small 0 round brush. Now this is a really tiny little brush, so it's great for getting little details. And you'll find the harder you press, the fatter lines you'll get. And then the lighter you press, the lighter lines you'll get. The size 4 rounded brush is slightly larger in size and can be really good for creating little leaf shapes. So you want to try and use the brush as its shape to see which kind of effects you can get. When you're creating fine lines and small details, it can be nice to add a little splash of water into your acrylic paint just to make it more fluid so it stretches further on the paper. The size 8 rounded brush is a really great brush. With its medium size, it can be really good for getting coverage down, but also you can use its fine tip for getting small details. The number 10 flat brush, you can use it on its flat edge to get a kind of rectangular shape, or you can use it on its fine edge to get a thin line. The long flat brush is great for getting in backgrounds and chunks of colour. With its large size, you can really spread the paint around. And again, it has that kind of rectangular shape, or you can use it on its edge for finer lines. It's good to experiment with all the different textures you can create with acrylics. You can use them thick so you get a more textured effect, or you can water them down so you get more of a wash. This can be good for creating backgrounds, and then you can layer thicker acrylics over the top. To create more tone when you're painting, you can pick up 2 colours at the same time on your brush. So here I've done some dark blue with some white, and also some yellow with some red. So then you get a multi-tonal effect when you spread it on your page. This can be a really good technique when you're painting. It's good to create a little test sheet like this when you're getting to know acrylics, so you can practice your blending and colour mixing and brush techniques. And remember, you can always use both sides of the acrylic paper to make the most of your materials. So acrylics are forgiving, so if you wanted to cover up a mistake, you can always, once it's dry, add a layer of paint over it. So here I'm just covering up that purple paint with some white. So as you'll see, the white is slightly translucent over the purple, so it would take a couple of layers. So I'd let this dry and then do another layer. However, if I use the dark blue over the purple, it completely covers it. So they are opaque, but certain colours
are just a little bit less pigmented than others. And again, when you're layering, if you pick up a lighter colour, like yellow, and put it over the red, once it's dry, you'll see the red still shows through and it kind of makes an orange. So this is something to consider when you're layering up a painting. If you're going to add a lighter colour, the colour underneath will show through, but you can get some nice effects doing this. So creating this fun little painting using tape can be a really good way to practice your blending skills. So starting off by taping down your page and using the masking tape to create random shapes. So one thing to consider when you're mixing your paints is you always want to bring the coloured paint into the white paint. So if I put a bit of white here, I want to take the smallest amount of colour in there. You'll find a tiny bit stretches really far. And you can always add more, but you can't add less. So if you end up kind of mixing the white into the coloured blob, you'll end up using loads and loads of paint. Whereas if you just slowly take a little bit of coloured paint into your white paint, you can mix and get the colour you desire. And a good way also is to load your brush up. So like on the palette like this, you kind of paint onto the palette and you can load your brush up so it's evenly spread of paint. And when there's more kind of like even paint in the bristles, you'll find it goes further on your page. So here I'm just filling in the triangles of masking tape using that blend-in technique. So using my brush to start from one colour and blend it into another. And I'm picking whichever colours I like here, so again you can pick to do the same. And this just really helps to get you used to blending your paints. Then when it's dry, you can carefully peel off the tape and it reveals nice crisp white lines, which I'm then just going to colour in using some fun shapes. So I'm using the Zieler acrylic paint pens here, which are really nice to use with acrylics. You can add finer little details and you've just got a little bit more control than you would with a brush. The great thing about acrylics is that they're a permanent paint, so this means you can paint on clothes. So here I'm just decorating some old shorts. So first masking off the area and sticking a little bit of paper inside so the paint doesn't seep through. I'm just going to add a base layer of white first. This will help for our paints to be nice and vibrant. Once this is dry, I've then with a pencil drawn on what I want to paint out. In my case I'm going to do like a nice barrel and wave and a whale tail on the other pocket. So you can paint onto the pocket as though you were painting onto paper. And here I'm using the same blending techniques we just went through to get a nice gradual fade on my sunset of colours. So you can layer up the acrylics using whichever colours you want to create your design. Then once the acrylic paints are dry, they will then be permanent. So this means they can be washed in the washing machine. Just make sure you turn the garment inside out and this helps to keep the vibrancy of the paints. The paint will fade over time, but I've got jumpers that still look great that are years old that I've painted on. So different materials are easier to paint on. So stretchy fabrics can be a little bit harder to work with. So here I've bulldog clipped down this t-shirt onto a board. And here I'm using the acrylic paint pens. So you can use acrylic paints and brushes, but also paint pens can be really great for painting on fabric.
So I hope you enjoyed today's class and picked up some handy hints and tips on how to create some different effects using the acrylic paints. We went through quite a few different techniques, including mixing water, mixing your colours, using your brushes, painting on fabric. So there's loads of easy and fun projects you can get started with at home to improve your skills on acrylic painting. One other thing to consider is if you do have a palette and you've squirted out a little bit too much paint and you wanted to keep that for the next day, it can be really useful to just get a plastic bag and you can pop them in, and then that will keep the paints dry and you can use them another day. So lots of little kind of things like that, so you make the most out of your art materials. But next week we're going to be going through some paintings, so creating a full piece of artwork using acrylics, so layering and building up our paints to achieve certain effects. So come join us then. Have a good week and I'll see you then. Bye!